So sometimes things go wrong, like you said, when I sent by mistake an ID that I don't have and I didn't know what was going on, that was a genuine mistake. And then we have to find what's wrong and we have to debug this to find the bug in our code. Before we start, we can see here that there is a warning telling us that we should use send status, not send, because that's deprecated. So just change that to send status. So when things went wrong, one thing that the simplest thing that you can do is that you could just have console logs somewhere. So you can say, hey, what's console log album ID? For example, something that people would do is that if I did album ID not with a capital, and then I will not get the right album ID. So you can console log here and it will tell us when I run, I can see this is not working, and then I can see that album ID is undefined in the terminal of the server. So this is one way of doing that. I could even add a message here saying that this is album ID, and then I'll have another message saying here console log album, and then close and run the server. And if I run it, it will tell me that album ID was undefined, album was undefined, so I know that there is an issue from here. So these small console logs can help you find where the issue is. A better way of doing this is using the tool that we've used in front end. This is a debugger, and we have one built in Visual Studio Code. So instead of doing that, I can just have here a breakpoint. Just click on the side of the line number, and then I go to the debug here, and I say start. This will run npm start, and then if I go to my Postman and fire a request, it will break the code, it will stop the code at this line of code, and then I can just inspect everything. Like I say, album ID is, I can see that it's undefined. I can see that reg.params has album ID 10, so I can look at the values of the request and the response. I can inspect everything that's happening, and there is here the debug console, so I can say, hey, give me rec, it will tell me everything that's in rec. If I say rec.params, I see that it's an object, it has album ID, and then I can see that it's actually album ID with an I capital, and then I can change that if I want, and I can step through the code, so I can let the code pass, and I can see that album is still undefined in this case, and then that it goes to 404 instead of going to this. So I can use the stepping over the code to go through the code step by step and see where the issue is. And then if now I change this album ID, I will restart my server and I will hit it, and this time when I stop here in the breakpoint, I'll see that album ID got the value that I expect. You can also add a watch to keep watching a variable if you're inside a loop or something, see how it changes over time. I can step through the code and see in this case that album becomes the value for the album that got selected, and then here it will go this bit. Album is defined, so we'll go to the last branch of the if else and we'll send back the response, and here we see we got a response. So the main thing is just you need to find what's wrong with the code, and you should use tools like the debugger to inspect your code, step through it step by step and see what's wrong with it. The least that you should do is just have console logs thrown around the code for places where you expect that there is an issue, and you see what's the values for the things, if it's what you expect or not. It's one of the most important skills to have as a developer, is to be able to debug code and find what's wrong with it, and you should become very familiar with using tools like the debugger for both front end in the browser or in the server now. Another, it's not a core thing, but a convenient thing that we want to add. So far, whenever we change code, we have to kill the server and start it again. But there is a dependency, a package that helps us with hot reloading, auto reloading the code whenever it changes automatically, and it's called nodemon. So if I say npm install, and this time we say, instead of save def is a developer dependency. We don't need it when we are for the API, but it's something convenient for the developer to use. And nodemon, if I look at my package.json, we see that nodemon will be added to, not to our dependencies, but to our dev dependencies. See, here is dev dependencies nodemon, and then I'll add another alias here that's called dev, and instead of you saying node server.js, I'll say nodemon, so node monitor server.js. So npm start and test are special ones. We can say just npm start or npm test. With anything else, we can define whatever we want to call this. We can say develop if we want, but to run it, we have to say npm run dev, not just npm dev. And then if I say npm run dev, you see that it's running it with nodemon. And what this gives me is that I can change the code and it will immediately restart the server for me, so I don't need to keep killing and restarting the server. So it's a convenient way to work faster while developing.